Hello, I'm Jessica. I am one of the admins of this group. Today I'm going to show you how I do this wood sign here. We are going to make it a little bit distressed and put different colors on it. This has already been pieced together. A little bit later on today, I am planning on showing you guys how to make this. It's super easy. I do not buy my signs from Hobby Lobby or Walmart. I make them myself in my wood shop. So I already have this piece together, and I actually already have the stencil on it that I'm going to be using. So if you can see that stencil. So the steps that I did already for this, because I had to have it dry, I put brown paint on it, so everything is brown paint, and then I put my stencil down, and I painted over it. So the vinyl was blue, so if you see here, the vinyl was blue. So that's just my stencil. That's what's going to be showing for the words, obviously. The reason why I paint over it is so I do not have any bleeding underneath. So when I paint my other colors on top, these other colors aren't going to show underneath. So the bleeding won't be underneath the vinyl. So you kind of want to seal it. So sealing it makes it so that there's not that bleeding effect. If there is bleeding, which sometimes there is, then it's not a problem. You can always fix it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So I have my color choices already picked out. Let me tell you guys a little bit something how I get my paints. So if you see behind me all of my paints, if you go to Home Depot, sometimes they have an oops section. So that's how I got my gallon size paint for $9. Normally they're what, $30 a piece. I go to Habitat for Humanity, and this is where I got these. I think I got this whole thing for 99 cents. And then Lowe's used to do, and I haven't seen in a long time, where they would do samples for 99 cents. So I haven't seen that in a while, but I do get a lot of my paint now from Home Depot in their oops section. So it's not exactly the colors that I do want, but I can experiment with other colors. So I'll show you. So like these were oops. Oh, so for 50 cents. So things like this. So I always like to have options on what I paint. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to do like a cream color. So we're going to do a cream color. We're going to do a little bit of a lighter brown. And then we're going to do, it's called Bayside. This is one of my popular colors. So eventually I will buy more of this in a gallon size. And then we're going to distress it with a little bit of white and sandpaper a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and get in it. Paintbrushes. You can get paintbrushes from all over the place. I like to use, when I make a distress look. See how bristly and weird looking this one is? This is good for just to be wisping away. Okay. And then other paintbrushes, Hobby Lobby, Walmart, you can get paintbrushes anywhere. So that's just your preference on where you want to go. But when I do my wisping effect, I definitely use these jagged ones, okay? So this particular one is an order. So it was a light color here. Let me move you. Feel free to ask questions because I am live and I can see your comments. And I'm going to try, I always wear the same shirt because it's always painted shirt, so I'm really hoping I don't get my other shirt painted on. Alright, so I'm going to do cream. I'm going to do the darker brownish, well, like semi-middle brown, and then the base side, and then we're going to do a pattern all the way across. So, I try not to get glitter on everything because I do a lot of stuff with glitter too. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I shake up my paint really well. And I just shook all the glitter on here. Okay. Okay, so if you see on here, I don't do a full coat. So we're just going to wisp it on there. So all at the bottom here and at the top here, we don't have a whole, it's not fully covered. But I do want to make sure that it's going to be fully colored in the middle, like where the words are going to be. Yay, Heather! So I really do want to put a good base coat right where I see the words, so that way the words are going to stand out. So normally I do this the opposite way, but I was one of those nights where, you know, no sleep or whatever, but normally I do reverse weeding on it, and I paint in the brown color. So we're just going to see how this one turns out. So normally I do the opposite. So anyways, so we're going to dip our paintbrush in our paint. And then on this piece right here, this piece over here, there's only a little bit of the stencil right here, the vinyl. So it's not that big of a deal if I don't get a good coat right there. So we're going to wisp it on. So I'm wisping all at the end here. So I'm not getting a really good coat right at the end here, okay? Because I don't want that effect. So I'm barely brushing down, but in the middle, I do want it. So here's my T for this. So I'm going to make sure I get that covered right there. When I go around the stencils, I make sure that I'm not pushing too hard because I don't want the paint to bleed underneath it. So we're going to make sure that I'm patting it down here. But then here, I want to make sure that there's a good coat there. In here. The paint tutorials are a little bit difficult to do because you have to worry about drying time and stuff like that. Alright, so wisping up at the top. Okay, so this is kind of the look that I'm going for. So it's a good base coat right here. I can do a little bit more if I wanted to. And on these panels where I have the cream color here, I'm going to go ahead and put the cream color on this side. So on this, I'm just wisping it. I don't like the full color on the sides. This is all just preference. So we see here, it's not a full coat. Now I'm going to do the same thing on that. Not a full coat. So there's barely any paint on here, so on my paintbrush left, oh, there we go. Alright, so not a full coat, but I kind of clumped that on there. So, kind of wisp it on. Alright, so now we're going to do the darker brown. So this paintbrush, we're going to put somewhere where there's no glitter. Now, next color. It's not really the darker brown. The darker brown's on the thingamabob here. Okay, give it a good shake. Okay, now do the same thing with the other one. This one's going to have more stencil on it, so I'm just going to make sure that I'm not pushing down where the stencil is because I don't want to push underneath it. Although I did do this sign a couple days ago, so the paint is really, really dry, okay? So I'm not too worried about it. So see how right there here's the words, I'm not really pushing that hard down on it. And at the end here, I'm going to wisp it. So we're not getting a full coat at the end there. Can you guys see? Ugh. Okay. Alright. Alright, so we're wisping, but I do have a stencil right here, so I want to make sure that I get it all with paint around it. So like I said, normally when I do these signs, I do it the opposite. I reverse weed, and I was just crazy this night. So that's just kind of how my life goes. Alright, so here's a stencil here, so I need to make sure that I get it all around it. And then we're going to get in these corners, or the, whatever this is, not corner, sides, whatever. Okay. And then here's the stencil up here too, so we want to make sure that we get this good up there. And now we're at the end, so I'm going to wisp it. I don't even know if that's a word, but we're going to use that. That's what I do. All right, so we're gonna get this in the creases here. That's what it is, creases, right? The thing with these signs, with the planks, if you have a really big design, you kind of have to place it where you're still going to be able to read the letters. So sometimes, depends on what it is, if you have like super tiny words, the planks isn't going to be really that feasible to do. So I kind of place, so here's the M, here's a S, so that's going to be a little bit difficult. So sometimes I come through and I hand paint it to make sure that you're able to see it. And I did get a knife. And I cut the stencil. I should have said that at the beginning. So I got like this, and all I did was go in between the planks so that way I can press the letters down in between, so that way there's no bleeding underneath those letters, okay? So that's kind of what I did. All right, so now the next color is going to be that Bayside color. So we're going to give it a good shake. So this is, okay, this pretty bluish turquoise, I don't know, Bayside. That's the color we're using, okay? I'm using all different brushes so I don't have to clean the brushes in between, since I'm going to do the other planks here. Okay, so this one's going to have a lot of words in here, so we're going to make sure that we get all those pieces right there. Okay, so there's that. Here are these pieces. So some people do like a makeup spongy thing, kind of sponge it on. That's kind of whatever you want to do. This is what I do, is kind of brush it on. Alright, we're at the top here. Like this E right here, we might have to hand draw that in a little bit later because it might not take. So definitely, like, full sheets of wood is a little bit easier to start out with. So if you haven't done wood signs, the full sheets are a little bit better to do. Alright, so now I'm just kind of going to wisp it here. So now I made sure that I got a good coat around that stencil, so that way the words are going to stand out. So now I'm going to get a good coat on here now. And this is a rustic sign, so it's okay if you mess up a little bit. You know, the rustic signs kind of give you a little leeway to kind of do some oops, you know. That's kind of why I like them, because I'm not OCD at all. If you see the way I live, no, there's not 1 ounce of OCD in me. I kind of like go as I go, you know. It's not whatever happens, happens type of thing. Alright, so now we're at the end, so I'm just going to wisp it up here. There's still some paint on my paintbrush, and I'm kind of grabbing this paint up here. So that's the effect that I want. I don't want it to be super full up there. And we're going to do the same thing with the bottom here. But then I definitely don't want, see where that line is? We're going to make sure that we disappear that line. We're going to try here. Alright, so that's pretty disappeared. Oh, I forgot to do these things, so we'll go back and do that lighter brown here. Alright, so make sure you do those sides. And normally I apologize at the very beginning of my videos for not wearing makeup or anything, but I don't really wear makeup. Only every so often, so it's a surprise thing when I wear makeup. Alright, put that one down. Next color is going to be the light one. All right, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go all on here. This is where we really want the letters to stand out. Alright, I'm trying to get in these creases here. Alright, that's a good coat, and then I'm going to kind of just wisp it around here. Now some people might ask, why don't you paint it when it's apart? Well, the stencil's kind of hard to kind of put it on and piece it apart, so this is the way I do it. Some people might do it differently. I really don't think there's a wrong way or right way to do crafts. It's just, you just go at it, you have fun, I'm using, I ran out of my 631 Oracle. Normally that's what I use for a stencil. So I'm using 651, so I'm really hoping it's not going to peel off when I do that. The difference between 631 and 651, 631 is going to be a semi-permanent vinyl, and 651 is a permanent vinyl. So I try not to use it on my signs, but sometimes it's the way it goes. Some people use contact paper for their stencil. I'm blind as a bat and I don't wear glasses. I really should go get glasses. So the contact paper, since it's clear, it's really hard for me to see it. So I personally don't use that, but a lot of people recommend it. So I recommend it as well. It's cheaper since you're just peeling the stencil off and you throw it away. So I understand why people use it. It's a lot cheaper than the Oracle. Alright, we got a good coat on those creases there. That's what I usually use as a stencil, the 631. It just looked clear. Oh, I painted over it. So if you're just now joining us, I painted the sign brown, and then I went over my stencil. So I placed the stencil on, and then I painted over it brown again. So I normally do a base coat, and then I put the stencil on and then paint over that stencil with the base coat, because that's going to seal it in and you're not going to have bleeding. So you always want to make sure that you don't have any bleeding. So a lot of people, they tap their paint on. They use like a sponge and tap it on. I really don't have patience for that. So I just paint over it and to try to prevent my bleeding. So that's what works for me. Some people use the makeup brush. So do whatever works for you. Where do you get your wood? I'm going to try to do a tutorial later on. It just depends on, I go to school full time, so I have some homework to do today, but I also had orders. Clear, ready for the blue. I do have an order for a different size wood thing, so I want to show you how I make my wood signs. So that is the goal today, to do that, but we'll see where I get. I do not buy my signs from Hobby Lobby or Walmart or anything like that, but you can. I have all the tools to do so, to make my own stuff, so that's what I do. If you don't have the tools, then yeah, go buy it. Alright, so I'm brushing it on around those letters here, making sure I get a good coat around the letters. I'm afraid to do the other tutorial. It's just gonna be really loud because it's gonna be live, so I can't really like pause it and say, okay, this is what I'm doing now. So we'll see how that goes. And my wood room is really scary messy right now. So as long as no one judges me, I guess. I kind of just, it's just a mess. I don't really clean up my craft room that often because I just use all the stuff all the time anyway, so I just leave it all out. It's probably not good. And I don't have kids or anything, so I don't have to worry about if kids get into the room, and I'm single, so I don't have to worry about someone else getting mad that I'm messy, because it's just what I do. And I forgot to do that color again. That's funny. It's the same color. So I just make sure that I kind of wisp it on there. And like I said with these signs, it's okay if you mess up a little bit. It's supposed to be rustic. Yeah, I like to, that's what I'm trying to think is the most creative crafters are messy. So we're gonna stick with that, and that's the story I always go with, is I am extremely messy. I'm not germ messy though. So like my kitchen and stuff, that has to stay clean. I have to do my dishes, but I'll show you my table here in a second. I have a giant table and I have this much room to work with, so, because I never clean my table. And I'm thinking a little bit later I'll do a live video, and I'll show you kind of what I'm working with here. I live in an apartment. I do not have a house. I don't have a garage, so I kind of just use what I got. I think I did a live video when the group first started, but the group just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. So we opened the group July 17th, and we have almost 6,000 members in it right now, so it's pretty crazy. Alright, so we got pretty good coat in those corners there. Not corners, creases, whatever. And then after putting this color on here, I'm pretty sure I want a little bit of a darker color, so I might change this light color. Might change it. We'll see if I can find the other color that I really wanted to use. Alright, so we only have one letter here. Make sure we get a good coat on that. Okay, now we're gonna do this. I know, I literally just forgot my edges again. Literally, like, it's alright. We'll go back. Alright, so I don't get a good coat on this. I let that other bottom, the base coat, show through on these sides. So that's what I do on that. And now I can go back and do my edges here. So I get some paint and I brush it off so it's not a really good coat on there. Alright, so this one needs it, this color. And when you do just like the wisping effect on it, sometimes you don't even have to sand. Just the sanding gives it a little bit more of like a a rustic farmhouse feel, or however, whatever the adjective you want to use for it. But sometimes when you do it so rustic and wispy, you don't have to. But if I see like a paint that I kind of gunked on too much, then I do. All right, so now we need to do that cream over again. All right, so we got all those sides or edges. Okay. And then here I noticed I didn't blend very well, so we're gonna try to blend that a little bit more. Make sure, I'm just gonna go over it. We're gonna make sure that we got all the edges. And like I said, I might do a different cream color on this one. I think my mind is gonna be a yes, so hang on. Alright, we're going to have to come back to that. Okay, so now what I do is I'm going to only do a couple of these planks. This side looks to be a little dry, so we're going to do these planks over here. And I'm going to get my jacked up brush. I do get these from Harbor Freight where they're on sale. They're 50 cents a piece. I like that it's not smooth and it's all jagged, okay? So you're going to need a paper towel. So here's my paper towel, and you're going to need white. So the reason why I want to do these a little bit darker is because my white effect, you won't be able to see it. So after this video, I will be changing this color. I just got to look at all my paint mess for a darker, it's just a little bit darker than that, okay? So I'm going to get my paintbrush. I'm going to dip it into my white paint. So I got some white paint on here. I'm going to get my paper towel, and I'm going to take the paint off. So we're left with this, okay? So now I'm going to wisp it on, okay? So we're gonna whoosh, 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 okay? So if you notice, you won't even be able to see on here, on that color that I'm doing this. So that's why I want to change that color. But on here, you'll be able to see it. So this is gonna give it a little bit more of that rustic kind of feel to it. This is just what I like, and I do the edges too. I do the edges there. And then that blue looks to be dry, so we're going to go ahead and put it on top of there. Over here I can see these are still wet. So that's why the paint tutorials are kind of hard to do. Okay, so that is what you do. You can do this with all kinds of different colors. So I'm going to go ahead and stop for this. I'm going to try to pull up one of these so you can see what it looks like underneath real quick. And this will be the end of this sign here. So if you take off all that paint, that's going to be what it looks like. Some people can get in the cracks a little bit more than I do. Some people paint them beforehand. I don't. I prep all signs, and I sell. This is my most popular color combination, is stuff like this. So see how I use that darker brown on here versus this? You can kind of see the white a little bit more. So I can still even put more white on here. So that's what I do. And then I see another sign that I did over there with a different color combination. Let me go show you. So here it looks like it's a green, like a maroon, bluish. Here's a start of another one. So here's like a turquoise and a brown. So this is a little bit darker turquoise. So then I'd go in and make it distressed. On here, I did sand these. So if you see here, the underneath wood showed through. So that is what the sanding effect would do to it. So it's all depends on how you want to distress your wood. You just kind of play with it, okay? So that white's probably dry now. I can get my little pokey tool. I get my tools from Harbor Freight. I love Harbor Freight. It's pretty much where I go for everything. So these are dental tools, you know, where you pick your teeth at. I suggest not using this for craft and picking your teeth with it, so don't do that. Alright, so all I do is come through here and I peel it off. So there is a little bit of bleeding here. No problem. I can either sand it or I can go back through and hand paint the inside. So I wanted that brown to show underneath. And that's how when we did the base coat, we put the stencil on, and then we did the base coat again. This prevents the bleeding. This is the method that I use. It's been my favorite method to do. Like I said earlier, some people don't even go over the stencil. They do a base coat, put the stencil down, and then they just use a makeup sponge and kind of dab it on there. So that's preference. This is the way I do it. I've had the most success with it. So yeah. And then here, I'll show you, because this is the V. So see how the H, since I used my X-Acto knife on my stencil and I cut the stencil, I went in between the planks and I cut the stencil. So here's the rest of the H. I would pull it off, but I want to change this color, so I'm going to leave it on there. So see, there is I see a little bit of bleeding down there, no problem. I'm going to sand this to make it a little bit more distressed. So I'm not even worried about that. This is a look that I wanted to go for, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I am going to paint these the darker color, and I will do the white distressed, and then I will put a picture in the group to show you the finished product. If you have any questions, always feel free to comment on it. Comment on the wall or whatever, and I'll try to get back with you. And then I'm going to try to later on show you how I made them, okay? That's the goal today. Anyways, y'all have any questions, put it in the comments, and I will see y'all next time.